Hello everybody, my name is Michael Doheny, Director of Operations for KCP Dynamics. Welcome to our introductory webinar for TAG, the Asset Guardian. We know your time is valuable and this initial webinar was designed to take only 30 minutes. We'll have a question and answer session at the conclusion of the webinar. You have the ability to submit questions during the presentation by clicking on the Q&A icon. All questions will be answered at the end of the session. KCP Dynamics consists of 200 consultants globally, with 28 resources located in the continental United States. We have clients in 30 countries covering 6 continents. We currently have offices in 9 countries on 4 continents. We at KCP Dynamics and our partner, the Asset Guardian, have worked together for the past 3 years to offer our clients the best in computerized maintenance management software. We're currently on schedule for our 4-year implementation timeline to integrate TAG to the NAV ERP for a large multinational client. This is a 4-continent, 20-country implementation with many venues operating in harsh environments. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the presenter for the webinar, Sean Drybrow from TAG. Sean has over 10 years experience in manufacturing and operations and has been working with Dynamics TAG for more than 7 years. Sean, over to you.
Thank you very much, Michael. All right, folks. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about extending your equipment lifecycle with the Asset Guardian. So it's a maintenance management software based in Microsoft Dynamics. A little bit about maintenance management software. So it's proven that with maintenance management software, there's an increase in maintenance productivity. There's a reduction in equipment downtime. There's savings and lower material costs. Think in terms of inventory, and as well there's reduction in maintenance repairs and operation and overall improvement in runtime as well. Today what we're going to cover is we're going to cover a little bit of TAG overview and some system navigation from an orientation perspective, protecting your equipment assets with real-time data and history and insights, touching on breakdown repairs, service requests, and as well touching on corrective maintenance and preventative maintenance. So let's move over to the demo. So what you're seeing in front of you right now is Microsoft Dynamics NAV. And just to orient you to the screen, you're looking currently at the TAG Maintenance Manager role center. And when you land in Microsoft Dynamics NAV, you always land in a role center. Across the top are the actions or the tasks the maintenance manager would look at on a regular basis. And down the side are the lists that the maintenance manager would touch on in his day-to-day operations. So think in terms of personnel and items and the equipment and any work orders, templates and work procedures in his finished work orders. Those are the kinds of lists he may touch on. In the middle, you'll see the activities. So activities in terms of maintenance requests that he might be monitoring, released work orders, preventative maintenance work orders, any overdue work orders. You see across the top we have some dynamic feedback on the activity panes just to be able to show how are we doing on each of those and draw attention. Below that we have pending approval work orders. So the concept is being able to have a work order that we're working with, it goes through to a pending approval before it is actually posted through to the rest of NAV. And as well below that overview, which is KPIs within the system as well. On the right-hand side, we see some graphs touching on work orders, active work orders, and I can look at them by status. Let's say, for example, order type, or maybe maintenance type, or maybe I want to take a look at that as well by work code or reason code or problem. The concept here, of course, is you want to be able to drill in and see, okay, what is the scenario in terms of my release work order list? How many do I have on inspection? How many are out there for repair right now? And be able to track quickly the information in a summary format. Below that, you see the TAG performance index, key performance index. This is a table that we use to be able to calculate and present key performance indicators within the role center for TAG. And below that, we have some generic charts that occur within Microsoft Dynamics NAV. You can chart and show any table within the system. Just touching base here at the top, the tag maintenance manager, we actually have 4 different role centers. One is the maintenance manager, the dispatcher, a technician role center, and as well an operations role center as well. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through to my equipment. And when I look at the equipment, there's a couple things I want to draw your attention to. The first is that the equipment has actually got a hierarchy to it. And what that means is even though I'm looking at the parent equipment, which is the Toyota forklift here, which is highlighted in bold, all of the equipment within that forklift may be set as an independent piece of equipment that we may want to do service on. I can move these pieces of equipment as well and move them from place to place by selecting and moving them. And in that way, I can take the unique history of that piece of equipment, move it into another hierarchy, or be able to track it and roll it up in terms of my costs to this Toyota forklift. I'm going to open up the equipment card. And when I open up the equipment card, what you see is a little bit of information about what piece of equipment we're looking at, some details in terms of the general fast tab, in terms of the physical location of that equipment and how it's being filtered. But as well, what you see is the activity on this particular piece of equipment. So think in terms of what finished requests do I have out there? What requests do I have out there currently in terms of work that needs to be done for this piece of equipment? What work needs to be done in terms of my released work orders? What have we currently done, finished work orders on this piece of equipment as well? And I can drill in not only to the header, but I can drill into the lines or the individual work tasks that we're actually doing on that piece of equipment as well. So quickly being able to drill in and see the details that we're working on with that piece of equipment. As we complete the piece of some work, of course, every time we complete some work, we have maintenance entries that are completed on a maintenance work order. The concept here is that I have personnel ledger entries, I have inventory ledger entries, tool, subcontract ledger entries, other cost ledger entries. Every time I complete a work order, that detail goes through and it is tracked in the history of the maintenance entries within the system. If I scroll down within that to the equipment statistics, that's what's reflected here. If I look at my finished work order costs, I have a cost of $12,283.91. That's summing up all the maintenance entries, all my inventory costs, all my personnel costs, all my subcontracted costs, total on the lifetime of this piece of equipment. If I drill into that piece of equipment and look at the finished work order list, and let's say I go and I find a piece of equipment or a finished work order within that, what you'll see is that the statistics or the cost summation here is set up in the same way. So I've got each of my personnel and inventory and OSP and other costs. They all sum up all the total costs on this finished work order. It's in that way that all the maintenance history gets summed up by a transaction. So I have a released work order, becomes a finished work order. All the entries on that transaction get pushed through and summed up not only on your equipment, but also looking at your personnel. If I go in and drill into my technician, I can get to the information in behind for that technician. If I take a look at an outside service provider, I can get that detail as well. I'm going to back out of there. Go back to my statistics. What you see as well here is I've got my actual time and I have some average time on the particular piece of equipment. What I'm showing here is the ability to look and see how am I doing on average for each piece of equipment, what's my activity level in a summary perspective for each piece of equipment, and how am I doing year over year with regards to budget. So if I have a budget for the year, how am I doing on an actual perspective as I go through the year on not only on my personnel costs, but also as I go through and look at my tool, my inventory costs, my OSP costs to see what the spread is on that total overall cost. Last piece I want to show you here is my equipment hierarchy analysis. And the key piece I want to show is just the ability to be able to filter through on the kind of work we're doing on a piece of equipment. Now, the important thing to look here is the spread or which piece of equipment or what kind of work we're doing on each individual piece of equipment here. So if I take a look at the equipment hierarchy, I'm looking and seeing over all the pieces of equipment, not only the parent equipment, but all the sub-childs as well. What is the kind of work that I'm doing on that piece of equipment? Going to back out of here. We're going to go and take a look at actually a work order and a request. So going back here to my role center, if you're looking within the system, I've got a request whiteboard within the system. The concept here is that sometimes work comes in and it's planned as a planned work order, or it's planned as a generated preventative maintenance work order. Sometimes work comes in and it comes in just as a request, where someone actually gives a call in, or they pick up the radio and call, or it comes in as an email, depending on how your request circumstance works within your company. If you take a look at the requests here, and I'm going to open one up and open up that request. When I create that request, I've got a list of my current open requests right now. In that request, I've got a requested service in terms of the work that needs to be done, the requester, and as well the equipment ID. All the other information is populated coming from the equipment ID from the master file. Once I've completed and figure out what I'm going to do with that request, I can create an order. When I create that order for that work, it's creating a planned or released work order. Okay, I select myself a technician that's going to do the work, and then I might select a template as well. And this is where some of the systems of today can really save a lot of work. If I open up this template, what you're able to see is the template really in a lot of ways looks exactly like a work order. I've got the details in terms of how we're going to code this template. I've got the physical location of where the template is being done. I've got the actual work that's being completed within that template, and I've got some tracking and cost in terms of the amount of work or cost that we expect to happen on that particular piece of that piece of equipment during when we actually apply that template. When I'm looking at that template, I've got a work procedure as well. And the concept within TAG is, yes, we can create a manual work order, but we want to save some work. We want to save some energy. The idea behind it here is if we can control and have standardized work procedures within the system, I can have, let's say, for example, a simple oil and filter change. It might have specific steps within it that we're going to complete, and it may have a particular amount of time that it takes us to do the work. If we define that as the smallest group of work, I can put that into a template. And when I apply that template, what happens now, as I go forward and apply this template to my request, it pushes through, it creates a work order, and when we actually go back through and look at the work order, first I see my work request, and then I see the work order that was created just now using that template. If I go and take a look at the template, I'll go and take a look at the work order. You'll see the same details that are associated back here. I've got my smallest group of work, or my work procedure. I've got all the work that needs to be done. And what you see here as well is that I've got it applied to the requested piece of equipment within the system. Just going to add an extra line. And what you see here is as I add that extra line, the technician is applied, my equipment ID is applied, the work code may be applied as well. It allows me to be able to add more details to that particular piece of equipment and to that work order as I work through it. I can append more templates to that line. I can copy from another work order. I can split work orders within and have a parent and child work order within the system. And when I'm ready, I can go and I can apply my usage or apply the inventory usage within the system and put in the actual quantity that I actually have against the parts within the system, or the OSP within the system, or the tools I may use within the system. Once I'm ready to go and I put some actual time in, I can complete the work order, or I can consume the inventory and push it through and complete that released work order. I'm going to back out of there, and we're going to look at a list of all our released work orders within the system. What I want to draw your attention to here is the order source within the system. You see that I've got a unique document number, a number for each individual record, but you see also that I've got an order source, and I'm looking at released work orders within the system. Some were created from a request, like the one I just showed you. Some are copied from another work order, and I can take a look and copy from a finished work order or planned work order, any existing work order within the system. Some are created manually, and what that means is you open up a work order, apply a piece of equipment, maybe apply a template, and go forward from there just from a blank planned or released work order. The last two that I want to talk to here are the generated work orders. And the concept behind generated work orders is that there's two different ways we can generate a work order. I'm gonna go and take a look at the planning department here within NAV here. And when we look at the planning department, there's two pieces that I want to show you. The first is the preventative maintenance, and the second is fault handling. When I'm doing a fault handling work order within the system, what I'm able to do is actually go through and create a fault entry within the system. What it does is it allows me to be able to define a fault report, equipment ID, and any particular failure codes that are associated to only that piece of equipment. What it means is when I record that piece of equipment, it will go and auto-generate that work order within the system. So, and it's based on a particular template as well. The second place that I want to touch on here is with regards to preventative maintenance in the system. Now, preventative maintenance, one way to look at it is triggered by a fault, and I want to take a look at the details of how I'm going to work with that fault and correct that fault. The other way to look at it is here's some evaluation of particular policies, and these are date meter policies, meaning that the preventative maintenance may be triggered by a date, or it may be triggered by a meter record that's entered into the system. I'm looking at a horizon over through to August the 1st. And as I evaluate, I'm evaluating not only date meters, but also some part meters as well. So I can evaluate inventory that's been in the system for a period of time. The last piece that I'm going to show you here is I'm just going to look at conveyor equipment group. And what I'm trying to do here is just show you that you can filter on the individual groups or individual lines within the system so that you don't have to show everything at once. When I go through and hit OK, what it's doing is it gives me a list of all the expected work that needs to be completed inside the system. So if I take a look here on the right-hand side, you see this one that I have highlighted. I have a 200-hour inspection that is to occur after 2 weeks. And on the right-hand side, you see that its likely due date is May the 29th, 2016. You see over and above that, I've got a date frequency, maybe 1 week, maybe a day, maybe every 5 days, maybe every 1 year, maybe every 6 months. The concept behind it is if it's based on date, it allows you to be able to trigger the work that needs to be done and create a suggestion to have that work done within the system. The other one beside that is meter frequency. And the concept behind meter frequency, in this case, the one I highlighted was based on every 200 hours. So every 200 hours, this conveyor flat belt needs to be maintained in some way. I'm going to go and take a look at this preventative maintenance, and we'll take a look and see how we're going to maintain it. If you open it up, you see that you have, again, a template, this case, a preventative maintenance template. It has a description of what we're going to do. It has the details in terms of the equipment ID that we're going to do the work, and it has some tasks that we're going to perform. What I want to bring your attention to is the values here, and the values are the other piece that are different from the normal templates. The idea here is either I'm going to trigger it based on a meter, as this one's set up, or I can set it up to trigger it based on date, or both, or either. If it's set to hit on both or either means that it would have to hit either the date or the meter, and both would mean that it has to hit the date and the meter in order to trigger a maintenance suggestion to be created. If you take a look at hours here currently, you see that my current meter is at 305 hours, which is more than the fixed integral and more than the next meter service that we actually have calculated in the system. So that's the reason why it got pushed through and it got suggested on our work order list. I'm going to delete a few, and we'll just open up and create the one that I want to within the system. If I build my orders, I can create my planned orders. What happens is it goes through and it creates those orders, and if I push through and I go to my planned work order list in the system, I see that I have a list of planned orders. Here's my 200-hour inspection. Once I'm ready to, I can push it, create it into a released work order, and create the packet or the traveler that goes out with the guys that do the work. That's the last bit that I was going to do about that portion of it. Just going to touch briefly on my finished work orders. And the reason for that is to draw back your attention to, I'm going to open one up. Draw back your attention here to statistics again. We had spoken earlier about the actual cost of inventory and personnel and inventory and tool costs and OSP. The concept in the system and the value of a maintenance system overall is the ability to be able to track those maintenance entries and have a history overall of all the work that you've done within the system. Once you've started to collect that information, then you're in a position where you can start to do some work on doing some analysis of the system. In that way, you start to change and control your planning in terms of the preventative maintenance work orders that you're creating and control those DMPs. But also allows us to be in a position when we take a look at our role center to be able to track and see how we do on a day-to-day basis with regards to KPIs. One of the ways to look at that information is also business intelligence. Now, one of the things here with regards to TAG is we're leveraging some of the Microsoft Power BI tools that are out there. These are of no cost. They're included with the product when you purchase with regards to Microsoft Dynamics Nav or with some of the other products that come with Microsoft products as well. The concept here, and this is what I want to draw your attention to, is we want to be able to look and see the top level information on the maintenance entries. So I'm using currently just the information in behind in terms of those finished work order details, and I can click into what was my actual usage overall. If I click into my actual usage overall by facility, in this case, I can take a look and see how's my Edmonton facility doing? How's my Toronto facility doing? How am I doing on this piece of equipment in terms of the details in behind? How am I working? How am I doing with regards to my technicians? I can sum up and provide a matrix with regards to the technicians in terms of the kinds of work codes that we're doing work on. I can use the slicers here to be able to show how are each of my technicians doing within the system. I can take a look at the maintenance actual entries and see overall what's my unit cost and quantity by equipment ID. And then maybe I wanted to take a look at just my Edmonton facilities. Maybe I want to take a look at just one piece of equipment. At the end of the day, the details that you're looking at with regards to the maintenance entry are what really drive your continuous improvement efforts and what really drives your ability to get that information back out of the system to be able to have some insight on how to go forward. From here, just going to go back to our presentation slide again and touch on what we covered today. The concepts that we covered today is that we have TAG, the Asset Guardian. It is a maintenance module that's interconnected with every single department within NAV, within the company, but there are no object complex, meaning that it's fully emboxed within NAV, it communicates with the other parts of NAV, and so it's easy to install. TAG data insight to the maintenance entries. So the idea here is using KPIs, using the role centers, using Power BI, external tools. We can get to that maintenance data and be able to have insight to make changes to go forward from corrective to a preventative data maintenance scenario. Real-time analysis, I showed you the statistics, I showed you the KPIs. We can get to that data analysis very quickly on an equipment or on a personnel or on the consumptions. Equipment overview, the ability to have that hierarchy, to roll up the information to the parent so you can see overall how is the parent doing, but to drill down all the way to the maintenance entries and to the finished work orders as you can see what the level of activity is on a work order. And as well our finished work order cycle. So you can see how do we do as we created a request, as we move that request through to a work order, as we move that request from a work order to a consumption and through to a posted record as a finished work order. So that's what we covered today. To learn more, please go to TAG, the Asset Guardian, or to kcpdynamics.com. And at this point, we'd love to have any questions from you. If you want to put them into or type them into the chat, then we'll answer those questions and we'll go from there.
Great, thank you, Sean. We do have one question. Question from a viewer. Can this solution be used without nav?
Yes, it actually can be used without nav. The concept is that because it is fully encapsulated, or because it's fully independent within the system, it uses nav as a back end, but it does not require nav to be installed to be used as your business system within the system, within your company.
Okay. Great. So I'll see if there's another question too. Give a minute. See another one coming in. Just a moment. What is the standard implementation time?
From a calendar perspective, usually it's about 3 months. And that 3 months is usually approximately 15 days of actual business time. The concept here is that it takes quite a long time to work through the requirements of doing an implementation of TAG, in terms of how do you want to do your master files, how do you want to scrub those master files as you push them in, how do you want to set up your personalities, how do you your personnel, how do you want to do the business rules as you work through the system, and then as you complete and figure out your processes. And some folks, some customers do have already set up processes, so it allows them to shorten that period of time as you set up those processes, doing the testing, and then go live process.
Great, thank you, Sean. There's one more question. How is it priced? So I'll answer that one if you don't mind, Sean.
Sure. Yep.
So asset tag, or the asset guardian, is priced as a solution for the modules, and there is a subscription based per user annually. So if the person that wrote that request wants to ping me at michael.doheny@kcpdynamics.com, I can get some more detailed information about pricing. But the answer is it's based on the object set, and then there's some implementation time attached to that. Okay, I don't see any more questions, and it's 1 minute till our 30-minute time frame. We'll appreciate everyone logging in and watching our introduction to the demo. If you want to see it again, we'll send out a link to the recording for those of you who are on the call, so that you can watch it again at your leisure. That will come out within the next few hours after this recording. So once again, thank you very much. And that person that had a question about pricing, I'll reach out to them personally. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.